Hey, RetconRaider here, with special thanks to the Raiders, the fine folks who help make these videos possible, including but not limited to Dragon Matrix 7, Mathew Smith, Revenant, Alois, Drakiith, Eerie V23, EgonAlter, Emile, Exsellsior, Gottlieb, Kazorm, Nathan Welch Jr., RandomPassrby, RobbyB, Tomasz Piątkowski, Triphoppenskip, and Valinrook. Thanks for your support, guys. That said, let's get started. And welcome back to Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous. As today we kick things off with a few mythic upgrades. Something which, honestly, I would have taken care of last time around, but after some light research, it turns out that every single plan I had for our future mythic build was rendered obsolete by the recent patches, so that was super fun. That said, after some general brainstorming and ruminating with the Raiders, I was able to settle on some alternatives, which are what we're going through today, though I will also touch on the things I planned to do originally, but can no longer do for various reasons. Let's have a look, shall we? Okay, so first up, and most involved, we've obviously got Vex. And right off the bat, Mythic Feats. My original plan here, as I'm sure several of you saw coming, was going to be Mythic ability Elemental Barrage, to pair with that Elemental Kukri we just picked up. I was planning on that one for a while, so it's just my luck that, like, literally, I think 2 weeks ago, with the advent of the Enhanced Edition, they nerfed Elemental Barrage, so it no longer works with non-spell items, such as our Kukri. It used to be you could proc that elemental effect with any elemental attack, including special abilities or in this case an item, and it did make several of them kind of absurdly powerful. Sadly, that is no longer the case, but I'm honestly okay with that, because it was kind of one note and a little overpowered. So we'll just, focus on a different cheeseball tactic instead. We're already pretty deep into this whole crit storm thing, so we'll just keep stacking on that. We'll pick up improved mythic crit for pretty much all of our martial characters this time around. For Vex in particular, that'll bump him up to a 16 to 20 crit range with triple damage on crits. After that, we've got Mythic Tricks, which, once again, I had grand plans for, all of which I had to change in the wake of the recent patches. I haven't really kept it much of a secret, but my original plan here was to go all in on Mythic Mobility and Mythic Persuasion, both of which are now out for slightly different reasons. With Mythic Mobility, the general idea was that it was supposed to complement our highly mobile and highly lethal mounted build. It would have made us faster, it would have allowed us to counterattack missed opportunity attacks on us, and it would have also eventually made us incredibly hard to hit. We would have gotten a secondary defense roll using mobility when enemies attacked us. But at some point along the line, as they were repeatedly tweaking mounted combat, they changed it in such a way that Mythic Mobility no longer functions with mounted characters. Which is fair. I mean, it's the mount that's actually doing all the moving and such, not the rider. But that's not how it worked when I originally built the character. So I had planned around how it worked then, as opposed to how it works now. Thankfully, our investment in mobility is not wasted. We do still get benefits from that with Mounted Combat and Indomitable Mount, both of which add an extra layer of defense on Kaz, keyed off of Vex's mobility score. So, I mean, there's still that. As for Mythic Persuasion, the general idea there was that it would have made Vex increasingly terrifying for enemies to face in combat. With each new mythic rank, it would have had more and more severe effects. The first one demoralizes them, the second one potentially paralyzes them, and then the third one makes them so scared they try to take themselves out before Vex can get to them. When I initially tested it, it was directly keyed off of ranks, as opposed to ranks plus modifiers. I don't know what exactly changed on it, but it went from occasionally proccing in my early tests to pretty much always proccing in my latest tests from last week. And at this point, it's essentially an I win button at anything over rank 1. So we might still take rank 1 because demoralizing the enemies is funny and not terribly overpowered, and it pairs well with Shatter Defenses, which we're picking up on a lot of our guys. But at rank 2 and rank 3, it essentially just kills or paralyzes everything on the field, always. And while that would certainly be effective and expedite our passage through the game, I feel like things would get pretty stale pretty quickly if we never had to fight anything ever again. So, yeah, we're gonna take a pass on that. Except for, like I said, maybe rank 1, but that'll be a little later down the line. We might revisit it if they end up nerfing it back to something a bit more reasonable. Regardless, in the meantime, I have set my sights on 3 other mythic tracks. The first of which is Athletics. And that one's pretty straightforward, but also very useful. Especially given that Vex is inexplicably incredibly athletic at this point, with like plus 40, I believe. That one makes it easier for him to shrug off various status effects, initially once per turn, and then later, immediately after a failed check. And then at the 3rd rank, which will be towards the end of the game, it just straight up changes him from a plus 15 base attack character to a plus 20. That's a full plus 5 to hit once we hit endgame. Not something to really worry about right now, but very useful once we get towards that final stretch, and possibly the post-game DLC, Inevitable Excess. Not sure if we'll end up doing that or not, but I mean, it's a ways off, so not something to really worry about right now. The other one I was looking at going all in on is Mythic World Knowledge, which starts off pretty tame, but gets kind of bananas towards the end. At rank 1, it just grants a small but scaling bonus to all skill checks in the party. Not too shabby. At rank 2, however, it replaces the 1 facing on your d20 with an extra 20, meaning twice the chance to roll natural 20s per roll on attack, skill checks, and so on. Which, given that we're going all in on critical hits, is a pretty huge get. Rank 3 is where things get really bonkers, though, because that's where it goes full meta. Vex realizes he's in a video game, and we remove feat restrictions or prereqs on our entire party. Given that that would come really late in the game, I'm not sure how much use we'd get out of it, unless we can then retrain our characters to take full advantage of that. We'd be able to refine our feat selection, pick up things we wouldn't normally be able to get, you know, stuff like Pounce or all those restricted fighter feats, and drastically improve our combat potential. Again, you know, going into the final stretch of the game and potential post-game DLC. That would be particularly huge for the pet pals, because they're the ones who are the most restricted by that 2 starting intelligence. That said, while all of that is potentially great, it's all late game stuff, so short term we're actually focused on something else entirely. We are looking at Mythic Persuasion, which at rank 1 is nothing. I mean, that grants us a permanency invisibility, no big deal, especially given that we've already got Walgif running that spell 24/7. But where it's at is rank 2, which is as far as we're going to take that one. But at rank 2, that gives us access to a very intriguing assortment of feats you can't otherwise get access to, except for possibly through World Knowledge 3. I'll have to look into that. That might actually free up a couple of mythic trick slots with a late game respec. But regardless, short term, that'll give the entire party access to Metamagic Completely Normal Spell and Improved Crit. Both of which are pretty phenomenal. Completely Normal Spell is a metamagic trick that reduces the effective level of a spell, allowing you to put it into a lower level spell slot. And if it's already a level 1 spell, it turns it into a repeatable cantrip that you can cast at will. That's a huge get for our buffers, Arushale and Walgif, and a useful but slightly lesser get for Ember and Darren, and Vex, I guess, as well. Mainly just because they're spontaneous casters, which means applying any metamagic trick, this one included, requires a full casting action instead of a standard. Though at least in the case of Ember, we could use it to offset that level modifier from Bolster. She already requires a full casting action for that anyway. As for double improved crit, that one's much more straightforward. It just further increases your already improved crit range by 1, and you can stack it up to 4 times, assuming you're willing to invest that many feat slots into it. For Vex, that would be a crit range 11 to 20, which, not too shabby. Sadly, no real immediate benefits from doing that, but a lot to look forward to moving forward. Beyond that, things get a lot tamer. We've got spells, which I don't really care about. I picked up Grease just because it could be funny and wasn't on his normal spell list. And then for his level 2 selection, I picked up Blur and Mirror Image, potentially useful buffs, which again aren't on his normal spell list. And then aside from that, Vex also gains 3 additional spells which are unique to the Trickster spell list. Bear's Grace, which is a huge dex debuff, which sadly we're not really set up for, so we're probably never going to use. Fish Missile, which is essentially a stinky equivalent to Snowball. Again, not really set up for it, probably not going to use it. And Summon Small Beer Elemental. Given that it's a 2nd level spell, I have to imagine it's not really well scaled for mid-game content, but I might actually try that one a couple of times, just as part of like our pre-battle prep. Worst case scenario, they distract the enemies for a round. Best case, they're actually useful, so we'll see. We'll see about that one. Next up, we've got Regal. Not a lot to say here. He picks up Mythic Improved Crit. That bumps him up to a crit range 19 to 20 with quadruple damage on crit. For Ember, kind of a toss-up there. I almost went for Expanded Arsenal, so she could start sharing her evocation bonuses with Necromancy and get more use out of her full spell set. But ultimately, I ended up going with School Mastery Evocation instead, which effectively boosts her caster level with all evocation spells by 1. I do still want to pick up Expanded Arsenal at a later mythic rank, but in theory that should then also share this, further boosting her necromancy spells just as we start getting into the really heavy stuff, like bolstered selective yet still completely normal Soul Reaver. Again, something to look forward to in the future. With Darren, again, I will say it was kind of a toss-up. I initially leaned towards Mythic Channeling, but ultimately the benefits there are relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. We're not exactly hurting on healing, so I feel like we can push that one back a little farther. Instead, given that we've kind of been leaning him into the whole Dispel and Dismissal thing, I was thinking we'd follow Ember's example and pick up School Mastery Abjuration. It's a small bump, but that'll help him pierce spell resistance with Dismissal, and it'll also make his Dispels more powerful. Combined with Spell Mastery, which we'll be picking up later. Unless I'm missing something, that'll be a full +3 level swing on his Greater Dispel. I'm sure there's other Abjuration stuff that'll also benefit from School Mastery, but I'll have to poke through his spell list. I hadn't really planned around that originally. And after that, not much else to say. Waldjif, while he has several potentially decent options here, is grabbing Mythic Improved Crit. That bumps him up to a crit range 19 to 20 with triple damage on crit. And then Arushale, following suit, picking up Mythic Improved Crit Longbow, which puts her at crit range 19 to 20 and quadruple damage on crit. And that's it. That's our Mythic Rank 4 upgrades. Aside from our backup party members who are sitting on the bench, but we'll worry about them later. As always, feel free to weigh in. Let me know what you think about my choices or what you might recommend. I will certainly consider all suggestions. Like I said, I kind of had to make this stuff up on the fly, given that those recent patches put the kibosh on a lot of my original plans. But that's neither here nor there. I feel like we're coming out of it stronger anyway. Oh, and also worth noting, with our new Mythic rank up, we also picked up 2 new campaign level spells. Mass Hideous Laughter and Mark of Terror, both of which seem like fairly potent army debuffs. Though, as noted here, we can only use them once per week. That might actually help us take out those drakes with minimal losses. So that's some good timing. That said, we are now officially done with the mythic upgrades. Again, feel free to weigh in the comments below. I am eager to see some feedback there. But otherwise, let's get this show on the road. Onward, my friends, back to Dresden. I'm sure they're mything us about now. The golden crown looks strange, perched above Thaberdine's bloated, unshaven face. But he doesn't seem to care. Yep, he's just up to his usual antics. And he sits, the poor fellow, in the prisoner's dock. Oh, Commander, nice of you to stop by. Sit down and have a drink with us. My treat. Don't mind if I do. But while we're on the subject of cheers and booze, check this out. Magic moonshine jug. Perfect for holding potent spirits. Wasn't there any booze you could have brought back? No? Well, it's alright. A magic bottle's not too bad. We know how to work with our hands, thank the gods. And just you watch. We'll learn to make this miracle liquor. Thaberdine wipes away a sudden tear from his eye. You're my best subject. You do everything I tell you to. I love you like my own son. So if you ever need my kingly help, you just ask. The drunkard hiccups loudly, overcome with emotions. Huh. You know, I'm not really sure what I was expecting to come from this, but it was probably slightly more than that. I'm sure we've got a follow-up event at some point, though. I'm not seeing anything. It looks like it just cleared it out. That can't be right. There must be some sort of follow-up. I guess we'll just wait and see. Thankfully, we have no shortage of other things to do in the meantime. Speaking of which, let's go pay a quick visit to Wilser Garms, our old quartermaster. I noticed he had a new line as well when I was poking around earlier. Well, sir, you old so-and-so. The bearded quartermaster gives you a friendly nod. What can I do for you? Hey, Wilser, quick question. Have we always had a giant stockpile of booze like this? I don't remember you carrying quite that much back when you used to be my quartermaster. Is that new? Wilser smiles shyly. Don't think I'm trying to encourage drunkenness among our crusaders. It's all in good fun, a way to blow off some steam. When soldiers can gather by the fire and raise a cup to honor the living and the dead, it reminds them that life goes on. But those who drink to excess or to the detriment of their duties won't get a drop from me. There is no sight more depressing than a drunkard. Well, don't let the king hear you say that, but fair enough. Just thought I'd ask. I'm sure that's nothing. Oh, hey, let's have a quick chat with the Storyteller. We have some notes for him, and a ring for him to reforge. Greetings, Vex Godglove. Have you brought me a new story? I have indeed. Have a look at this. Excellent. Let's see here. The Storyteller's fingers run over the piece of old cloak. I sense power. This item belonged to someone truly powerful. It was created as a gift. It's so hazy. I would like to learn this story, but it would take much to revive such a mighty relic. If you can get 5 vials of magic essence, 2 bars of cold iron, 2 vials of demon blood, and 3 skins of magical creatures, I will try to restore it. Oh, right, I forgot about that. That's not actually what I was here for, but, thanks. Ancient cloak. No, I was actually here for this. Can you fix this? The storyteller sets the ring fragment and the bars of metal on his open palm. He clenches his fist, crumpling the metal like paper, and pours essence from the vials over it. You feel terrible heat rising from the elf's hand, and when he opens his fingers, you see a beautiful ring. A remarkable object, this. It was created by a talented spellcaster, and is able to summon beings from other planes, as if the boundaries set by Pharasma do not exist for it. It is a powerful and dangerous item, but it was created by an honorable person. That is probably why it was not used at the crucial hour. There's quiet sadness in the storyteller's voice. Neat, thanks. So that didn't hurt or anything, or... You know what, never mind. Let's have a look at this thing. Ring of Summoning. We'll save the lore for the next reader episode. For now, we're just looking at how this thing works. The ring grants the ability to summon either Axiomites or Soul Eaters, randomly selected once per day, per the Monster Summon 8 spell. Also, the wearer and all nearby allies gain a +2 bonus on damage and a +2 bonus on saving throws versus chaotic creatures. Not bad. Range is a bit on the short side, but I think I can work with that. Oh yeah, that's a definite placeholder. We'll swap the Ring of Sharp Strikes out for the Ring of Summoning. Alright, now let's hand over all those pages that we just collected. Oh, hey, almost forgot. I also picked up these in a house owned by some ancient witch of no particular renown or repute. Thought you might want to take a look at them and maybe tell me what comes to mind. No particular reason. The storyteller carefully takes your find. Yes, you're right. Another piece of evidence from the past I have forgotten. The storyteller clenches the pages you brought. His voice becomes a bit younger and more energetic. My feet are covered by a crawling carpet of locusts. A few insects got under my clothes, under my shirt, down my back, in my pants. They're crawling all over me, tickling my skin with their little legs. They will not attack until they recognize me as a stranger. Protective spells are guarding me, allowing me to deceive the pestilent denizens of the rasping rifts. I keep very still. I am but an observer, an uninvited guest who prefers to remain unnoticed. I don't hold my breath when Demon Lord Discari swings his scythe over his Yagna. I feel nothing when his Yagna deftly avoids the blow and tries to strike Discari in return. I am here by the order of Lady Nocticula. I must observe the fight and then return to Alushanira. The affairs of Demon Lords do not concern me. So why was Nocticula interested in Discari? Do they normally work together, or...? The storyteller shrugs absently. I don't know, and I don't want to know. My service to the Lady in Shadow is almost over. It's the 17th year of my life in the Abyss, and I'm already counting days to the end of my term. Okay, and what is an Yagna? She is a rising demon lord, servant of Lamashtu. She simultaneously inhabits 7 mighty ant-like bodies. His Yagna and Discari are always sniping at each other, but they dare not enter into open war, fearing Lamashtu's wrath. Right, yes, I knew that name sounded familiar. That's, we read about her in one of the reader episodes. if I recall correctly, she and Discari have this whole thing going on because they're fighting over which one of them is the true Demon Lord of Swarms. The Storyteller chuckles. The current fight is just a small quarrel, 1 in a million. His Yagna came to the Rasping Rift with only 3 of her 7 bodies. I'm sure it will be easy for Discari to destroy the intruder. How about your buddy, Kaini? The Storyteller's lips part in a smile. Here with me, of course. The stubborn lad refused to stay in Alushanira and volunteered to accompany me to the Rasping Rifts. He said he wouldn't miss such an exciting adventure for the world. His youthful zeal and desire to live life to the fullest seemed to make me younger, too. Right, cool. Please, continue. Rift Carver, Discari's scythe swings up again. With a whistle through the air, it lodges in the ant-like head of one of his Yagna's bodies. Greenish slime splatters, the poisonous drops falling on my face. I keep very still. With a last convulsive movement, the ant-like body winces, tearing the scythe from Discari's hands and jumping back, only to drop on its side and lie still. This loss will hardly worry his Yagna. To kill her, one must destroy her heart, which is hidden deep under Yanaron, a city in Lamashtu's realm. Disarmed, Discari turns to his Yagna's second body that is attacking him. I slowly turn to Kaini, who is sitting next to me. My young friend is usually easily impressed by such mighty opponents fighting. But the seat next to me is empty. Kaini is gone. The Storyteller shivers and starts speaking faster. Forgetting about the danger, I look around for my friend. The swarm of locusts at my feet buzzes, displeased. But the need for secrecy no longer seems so important. Where is Kaini? After a moment I see him, and a treacherous shiver runs down my spine. My friend is standing over his Yagna's fallen body, and reaches for Discari's scythe, sticking out of it. Wait, I've actually seen that thing. Isn't it like 100 feet tall? How big was Kaini again? Rift Carver has powers over the material of the plains. Discari made his scythe with his own hands from his mother's skeleton. It can cut rifts in the plains themselves. The Demon Lord used it to make the Rasping Rifts, his own abyssal realm in the plane of the abyss. Oh yeah, we actually saw that. That was one of the visions the Storyteller had. Back when we gave him the crystal knife, the one that turned out to be a crystallized drop of Discari's blood. We saw him attack and kill his mother in the vision. So then what happened? Kaini, stop! Don't touch it! I scream, throwing caution to the winds. My friend turns to me, his face baffled. I understand him to an extent. The scythe, able to rip passages between planes, will certainly help us save Golarion. But trying to steal it is rash and stupid. We have nothing to defend ourselves against the Demon Lord's rage. Stop, my friend, before it's too late. Out of the corner of my eye, I see Discari lift another Yagna's body and tear it to pieces with his bare hands. But I don't hear his howl of victory. The Demon Lord throws away the still body of his enemy and turns to us. A swarm of insects is biting my feet. Locusts cover my eyes, hitting me in the face, trying to get inside my nose, mouth, and ears. Nevertheless, I get to it first. I grab the giant scythe and swing it awkwardly in the air. Rift Carver is so heavy, my hands instantly cramp. I have no idea how I managed to lift it at all. I drop the scythe on the ground, but the damage has been done. Right in front of me there is a small rift, a wound in space. The smell of Alushanira's sewage comes out of it, a wonderful smell that brings me hope for salvation. I grab Kaini's sleeve and dive into the rift, only a moment before Discari's claws cut the air where we just stood. The Storyteller catches his breath and wipes the sweat from his forehead. I angered a demon lord, and my life was hanging by a thread. I'd never have thought that something like that could happen in my life. The storyteller shakes his head distrustfully. How many dark sides of my past will I have to find? I am starting to fear what we might see in the next pages of my notebook. Interesting. Not really a lot of revelations in that one, though. It did feel like that was really setting up for Kaine's death, but then they sort of backed away from it right at the end there. I guess there was the name drop for Rift Carver, but we already know that because we passed a couple of Arcana checks during Act 1. Maybe the big reveal here is that rift he created between the Rasping Rifts and Alucia Nera. I'm not really sure where Nocticula fits into the whole World Wound thing, because we know she's on the periphery of it, but she doesn't seem to be an active ally of Discari or Baphomet. But this does seem like something that would bring her to the attention of Discari. Oh my goodness, that's why Arilu works for Discari, because he has a plane-cutting scythe. It's so obvious now. Anyway. Who is Sox? Just like the last time, Socothbenoth shows up wearing a fake mortal guise. He grins mockingly. The passion and zest for life displayed by your soldiers truly impresses me. Never before has the crusade looked this much like a party. Were you aware that the Crusaders are actively petitioning for a brewery to be set up right inside the army camp? Crusade-level lager golems. I'm starting to sense a bit of a recurring theme here. Kind of tame for a mythic unit. The oldest spirits of Caden Kalian's retinue, who have abandoned their abodes in distillery barrels to seek out inebriated adventures, trusty drinking companions, and a good brawl. Oh, and there it is, stunning attack. Okay, well that would certainly make them mythical. Nice to finally have a use for all that energy we've been stockpiling. There was an argument over who gets to run it, so your subordinates have come to blows. Both priests and wizards are eager to fight for the privilege. I strongly advise that you make a decision about this matter before they kill each other. I am eager to see what happens next. His Majesty Thaberdine Quintissimus Hierophontal gives the impression of a miserable yet very determined man who spent last night sleeping in a mud puddle or a roadside ditch. Nonsense! What do these tadpoles even know about beer? Plain soldiers. That's who can be trusted with such an important task. Brave souls don't get distracted by silly stuff like books and prayers, so they will remember to boil the wort and make the kegs. Otherwise, supply gets disrupted and my majestic self has to endure a hangover like a lowly peasant, which I am doing right now. Yeah, that's rough. Wait, didn't I see you drinking like 20 minutes ago? Actually, what are you even doing here? His Majesty huffs and puffs out his chest, but quickly ruins the effect with a thunderous belch. Do you really think I can leave you alone in your command? You'll be completely lost without my advice, or worse. Right, yeah, sure. Hey, I'm as much a fan of the old booze and crews as the next guy, but you don't think this will have a negative impact on, like, our military readiness or whatever? The demon shrugs, showing absolutely no interest in the fate of insignificant mortals. Booze pushes you to accomplish amazing feats, yet contributes little to one's longevity or to leading a prosperous life in general. That is not an answer, but sure, okay. So why is it so important who actually makes this stuff? Can't we have, like, multiple breweries run by multiple different people? You're not likely to see the lucky souls entrusted with this honor sober again. The priest will preach into their cups and push your soldiers to new feats of heroism and folly. Tipsy wizards will perform their rituals as their whimsy dictates, which is going to be both exciting and dangerous. Oi, this is hogwash. Like I said, it's the heroic soldiers whose hearts are filled with booze and courage that should be the guards of the inebriating shrine. It's one thing for a soldier to spill blood because somebody else said so, but entirely another when he's defending his very own beer. If that doesn't make you fight till the bitter end and give away your life, then nothing will. Wow, gotta say, you actually make a pretty good argument, Your Majesty, but let's have a look at the actual effects here. Oh, that's a whole bunch of stuff. Except for that one, of course. Okay, so letting the priests do it grants plus 10 morale, no big deal. Plus 1 to maximum morale, that's interesting. Plus 5 to combat morale, DR1 on all units. But with a 5% chance to perform a random action instead of the action I want them to do in combat. Oh, and that's all attached to the actual brewery structure, interesting. So I wonder if that stacks. In comparison, letting wizards do it does the morale stuff, but also increases our power and energy recovery. Along with the 5% random action malice. And then Thaberdine's thing also gets us the morale bonuses, as well as plus 1 to attack and AC for all units. Plus the usual malice. I've got to say, the one that really jumps out at me here is the Wizard Brew. Because we've obviously been leaning very heavily on our caster generals to achieve victory. The soldier buffs are nice, but they're somewhat offset by that 5% random action malice. Whereas with the generals, with more power and faster energy recovery, they'd just be wiping out enemies a whole lot faster. Sorry, Your Majesty. I mean, I liked your idea, but if we want to get some real lightning in a bottle, I think we gotta go with wizards. Trust me, this stuff's gonna be pure magic. You fascinate me. You really do. Not only did you transform the crusade into a traveling circus, you even keep adding new amusing touches to it by pretending to give it directions. Your sense of humor delights me. Socothbenoth stretches lazily and grins. All right, I'll leave you to play with your little crusade. It has been so much fun that I feel obliged to come back and visit you again in the future. So I guess that was our follow-up for the magic moonshine thing. Interesting. Commander, permission to report. Captain Harmattan looks worried. The army's disposition is growing dangerous. More and more soldiers express their distrust toward you and your mythical powers. They grumble in their lack of understanding of where you are leading them and what your plan is. What's worse, the wary have once again emerged among the officers. They were adding fuel to the fires of sedition, and we've already had a few cases of direct insubordination. You have to win back the trust of the soldiers forthwith, or else the army will be paralyzed. Some privates have already refused to march into battle. I suggest that we make your strategy clear by setting up a bulletin board. It could have a new statement with your name on it every week. Every 2 weeks, you could invite delegates from your soldiers to ask any questions they may have. Yeah, that doesn't sound like something I'd do at all, but thanks. It feels like the soldiers are discouraged and dismayed. We should embolden them by reminding them that the crusade is about more than just death and danger. This is a time of camaraderie and valor, too. Maybe we could adorn the city with an inspiring monument or two? The kind that lifts your spirits whenever you walk by. Soldiers have a right to ask their generals questions, but they have no right to disobey orders simply because their curiosity isn't being satisfied. They are committing sabotage, and the penalty for sabotage is a court-martial. Harsh. We'll build new taverns for our soldiers and pour them free beer on the commander's behalf. That's the easiest way to win their love. Not a bad idea, but I feel like we might be overplaying that a bit. So what's up with the wary? Weren't they supposed to be working for us now? Didn't we bring them on the payroll or something? Not completely, apparently. The captain makes a helpless gesture. We haven't yet solved the main issue. Far too many officers still believe that the Queen herself should be in charge of the crusade. No matter how many feats you've achieved, they still consider you an upstart. We'll have to do something about them soon, but the unrest among the soldiers is the most pressing matter at hand. Right. Hey, Captain Harmattan, what's your opinion on the wary? I mean, they are your comrades in arms, right? So surely you must have some opinion. I'd be curious to hear it. I think of them as traitors, Commander. Harmattan replies quickly and firmly, but his expression darkens for a moment. Intriguing. I am not sure how to read that. Alright, well, what's the actual problem this time? Why are the soldiers all up in arms again? Your mythical powers. Yes, they do secure us one victory after another, but even the most loyal troops raise questions from time to time. They wonder, what are you? Are you mortal like the rest of us? Or perhaps an emissary from other spheres? And if so, then which ones? Are you truly fighting for Crusaders' cause? Or do you have your own ulterior motives? All of this paves the way for endless speculation. Oh, well, that's easy. I'm here to get rich and powerful. And honestly, it's been working out for me pretty well so far. But, you know, I'm also fighting demons and closing the world wound, all that jazz. Anyway, let's talk options, people. As you command. So, Sela, you wanted statues or something? I have doubts that explaining battle strategy will help our people in any way. They're fighting a brutal war, maybe the worst war in Galerion's history. They're exhausted and scared. If we want to help them, we have to give them courage. We're already making an effort, but I would also suggest adorning our fortresses with monuments. Not grim ones, but something heroic or uplifting. That way, soldiers who are about to march out or who have just marched in will be able to smile at them like old friends. I had a marble friend like that once. The recruits in our order believed that rubbing the hilt of his stone sword would bring you good luck. Oh, sure, yeah, that is a perfectly normal and not at all crazy thing to do. Oh, I wouldn't mind getting my own statue. Dismissing mutinous talk as exhaustion and lack of support is fundamentally wrong. Those few with conscience serve well and true as it is, without question. However, those who can afford to doubt and ignore their orders are a step away from becoming deserters, who will remain deaf to any pleas and arguments, and even more so to inspiring embellishments. Right, yeah, and you just wanted to straight up kill them, right? You really think that would work out better? The inciters' bodies hanging from the gallows will answer any and all questions. Sedition must be extinguished swiftly and mercilessly. It's absurd to even consider convincing or appeasing the doubtful. That couldn't be more counterproductive. The sight of hanged bodies will absolutely stop the soldiers from asking questions, but it won't stop them from thinking them. For example, will they hang me next? Did I make a mistake by joining the army? Isn't it about time I made a run for it? Yeah, I gotta say, I'm siding with D on this one, Reg. There's a centuries-old cure for grouches and complainers. Alcohol and a little cheer. You mean booze and cheers? We'll build more taverns, supply them with strong beer, and treat the soldiers once or twice, courtesy of the treasury. They'll leave their doubts behind in the blink of an eye and proclaim you the best and most beloved commander who ever lived. I'll be the first to agree that taverns are a good thing to have, but they're not enough to support the army's fighting spirit. If we don't give our soldiers something more than drinks, our taverns will just become places to drown their sorrows or vent their frustrations through brawls. Harmattan, you pitched more paperwork and meetings? I'm just saying, if the soldiers don't understand you, then you must bridge the gap between you and them. Create means of direct communication, so to speak. We'll set up a bulletin board that will, simply put, keep everyone informed of the situation on the front and the basics of our strategy. In addition, we'll set up times when, once every 2 weeks, the soldiers can send delegates to you and ask any lingering questions. A general is under no obligation to report to their soldiers. They'll end up disputing your every word and second-guessing your orders before you know it. In some exceptional cases, a general may seek counsel from experienced veterans, but turning your headquarters into a thoroughfare is the surest way to destroy your authority. A bulletin board? Pray tell, how many of our soldiers can actually read? Maybe we should engrave this board with some obscene carvings. Then at least it would be useful. Which would also probably raise morale. So what are your orders? Well, let's have a look at the actual effects. Okay, inspiring monuments grant a higher chance to act twice, due to positive morale. And then Regel's gallows are exactly the opposite. They reduce the chance of losing a turn due to low morale, which is useless to us because we've generally kept ours positive. So I think we can dismiss that one outright. Taverns. Oh, that's interesting. That essentially blunts the effects of both positive and negative morale, which would be good if we were constantly swinging back and forth between the two, but we're not. We are generally positive. So that would actually hurt us more than it would help us. And then Harmattan's thing is another sort of midpoint compromise. Higher chance for positive effects, lower chance for negative effects, which actually makes it better than both the taverns and the gallows. So in theory, that's really the one we should probably go with, but again, it's just not really a Vex thing to do. Setting up a bulletin board and announcing all his moves in advance, and answering questions about his long-term plans. All things considered, I think we gotta go with Sela's thing. Make sure you get my good side on those statues. Will do. I hope this will help in some way. Oh, I'm sure it will. Alright, so we are past time, but let's go ahead and get our 2 new buildings set up real quick. Yet another stupid advice. Some snob who somehow thinks they're entitled to advise the Crusade leader is impatiently waiting in Dresden to present another far-fetched idea. Yes, that would be Socks and Thaberdine. Already taken care of, but thank you. Okay, so brewery. Pricey, but we can certainly afford it. We'll get that set up right here somewhere. Yeah, I guess right next to the sanctuary seems fine. This thing is going to be cranking out logger golems. And my statue. which my sense of aesthetics tells me should go right out in the middle of this courtyard. And that's it. We built everything else, so I think we're done for now. Alright, folks. You know the drill. We'll hit the pause button for now. I'll take care of the off-screen bookkeeping. And we will pick up here next time, as we check in with the Wardrobe Council, and then set our sights on the Ivory Sanctum. I am very much looking forward to both. See you then. Oh, and remember, although I do love playing Pathfinder, Wrath of the Righteous, you can find out more about the game by visiting the official website. And if you'd like to help support the channel, then feel free to push the buttons that do the things, or maybe even check out the Patreon, the YouTube memberships, or the Nexus GG page. Links are in the description.